Hello, baby. Good. I'm trying to think of like a third, like it's morning, afternoon, evening.
Good supper time.
Good supper time.
Good supper time, everybody.
GST. Hey, wait. When's Rolex gonna stop the GMT and make the GST?
They should. The great supper time.
The great, yeah.
And so
it's
a rotating bezel that tells you exactly how far away dinner time or supper time is.
Yeah. Hey, that's not the GDT. Though,
yeah.
Right? So
that's a completely different watch, and it's $10,000 more.
Yeah. Well, I was thinking
like the
actually,
Submariner
so
versus
the
the
rotating
Sea
bezel just says supper time all around it. So you, no matter how you turn it, it's always supper
and so
time.
your boss says, "Sorry, I need you to get this report into be stat," and you look at your watch, and I'm saying, "Boss, it's supper time."
And he goes, "My apologies."
I can't. You can't interrupt supper time, as we all know from. I think you should leave season 2. It's illegal to interrupt.
You can't move. You can't move it. Yeah.
Yeah,
no.
You can't move it.
Well, if they do move it, they have to get that vacuum, right? The what's it called?
The supper time the hot dog vacuum, but Rolex needs to make a supper time vacuum. They're gonna get into consumer electronics.
The supper time vacuum is made up of the metal that you would normally use to make the GST.
So here's what happened.
Watch.
Here's what happened.
Okay.
They announced the GST.
Okay.
They sold like a couple, and then people were like, "It's not working. My boss is still making me work through meals," and so they're like, "Fuck the watch. We got to solve this." And then they took all the resources, all the gears, all the metal from the watch, and put it into this supper time vacuum.
Well, the thing is, you can't, like, they say you're getting fired for low performance, but we all know that's not true.
We all know what it's for.
Yeah.
Let's get into it. The sponsor of this episode is CalicoCutPants.com.
There we go. Thank you. You have to, if when you use them, you gotta give. Okay.
You gotta give.
Otherwise, the whole thing just falls apart.
We should do a whole thing about the menswear in the Tim Robinson universe, because there's a lot of like menswear or fashion-based sketches, and they're all fantastic.
Yeah, I wonder.
I think he's like into clothes. I think he's not like into menswear, but he like dresses cool at least.
Yeah, I saw like a video on TikTok of him like doing like he said like he went to some random like LA skate park. He's just like going around, and like the comment was like, "Is Tim Robinson hot? Like, is he hot?" And I was trying to look at the fit. I mean, it was like a skate, like like I think probably like rolled up like jeans, like salvaged jeans with like Vans or something. But hey, I mean, hey Timmy, if you're listening to this, we would love to discuss the menswear and Dan Flashes and
the shirt. It costs $2,000 because of how
complicated
the shirt is. It's like one of those like patchwork flannel shirts or like a capital bandana shirt. It's like the same reason there. So I mean, hey.
Well, do you think that JTR like
his wardrobe must have cost so much money because of how complicated
when he's
all
looking
his
at
shirts
his like fun shirts, he's like, whoa, what's going on? This is the most like Discord specific perhaps like episode so far. I mean
this is again, hey, why you gotta get in the Discord so you understand all these
plugging at the top. The best menswear
jokes.
you can see me and this is gonna be like a month out of recording this, but you can see me arguing with Eric about why Fast 9 fucking sucked.
Yeah.
It was so bad. But we can't get into that today. It's illegal. We can't talk about Fast 9 or any of the Fast saga because actually, did you know that it's called F9 colon the Fast Saga? Like that's a weird title.
Saga?
No, that's the full title, by the way.
Is like Hobbs and Shaw, is that like Hobbs and Shaw colon a fast story or something?
Yeah, it is like Solo.
Okay. Yeah.
And also Hobbs and Shaw canonically takes place years after Fast 9. Just like how Tokyo Drift. Well, yeah, because Tokyo Drift.
Full disclosure, I haven't seen any of these movies. I've
seen like sporadically
cherry.
Through college and everything. But according to like what I was reading, Tokyo Drift takes place like after Fast like 5 or 6, but it's the third movie in the franchise. It's fucking crazy. It's weird.
They're going nuts over there at Universal.
Yeah, there's actually, really quick plug before we get into this Menswear podcast, by the way. But there's a scene, so you know how they go to space, right? Like it's out in the trailer.
Of course.
Like they're in. So when they talk to these guys that are doing it, I forget what their names are, but I thought it was kind of a fun tribute. So they're testing a rocket car, and it's like they have like a remote control, and one guy's wearing a jumpsuit, and the guy's wearing a fucking vest over a denim jacket. So it's kind of like a fun Back to the Future throw, like a call out, which I mean, it's so clear what they were doing, because they were standing in the middle of this like road, and then they're like watch this, guys, and they do it, and then
there's got to be like a time travel subplot coming at some point, right?
Well,
like that's the only dimension that they haven't conquered. They've conquered fast. They've conquered furious. Now they've conquered space. The only place left to go is the future or the past.
Well, that's what they have to get the Tesseract, right? I mean, the Tesseract from Interstellar is what I'm referring to.
Exactly. They keep talking about, we got to do a crossover of like Men in Black with Fast 9, or Ghostbusters with all this stuff. Here's what I need to do. Fast and Furious, Star Wars. They go into space too far. And they're like,
I don't want to.
Oh shit!
I don't want this to be a Fast 9 episode. But
I haven't seen any. I don't know anything about the Fast series. I
I
don't know what their jobs are, so I can't really riff on this for very long.
So in this one, the bad guy says like, I want, like, we're gonna find the Fast crew. I want tanks. I want X-wings. I'm like, oh okay. and then later on, he's talking to some character, and he's like, I'm the hero. I'm fucking Luke Skywalker. And she goes, no, you're fucking like You're not a rebel. You're the Empire. He's like, no, I'm Han Solo. And she goes, no, you're Yoda. And he's like, you're right, I'm badass. She goes, no, because you're a puppet. And I'm like, man, they really drew out this whole Star Wars thing. In this
one of the funniest thing, like maybe not the funniest, but a joke that always sticks with me is on this like web series that I was watching.
Yeah.
What was it? It was Complicated. There's a bit where it's like a parody of those like like BoJack Horseman or all those like sitcoms where it's just people talking about depression. And there's a scene where there's a bunch of comedians like playing a poker night, and they're all discussing Star Wars, but only referencing the sequel trilogy, not bringing up Yoda or Luke Skywalker or anything. But it's like, bro, you're being such a Kylo Ren right now. It's like, no, I'm not a Kylo Ren. I'm a total Poe. And it's just such a funny gag. I love that.
I'm Maz Kanata. I mean, that's kind of the butthole eyes. If you haven't like looked at Maz Kanata and you don't think she has like rectum eyes, what's
wrong with you?
Yeah, not your rectum, that's for sure. Well, welcome everybody.
Welcome everybody. Have we even introduced ourselves?
No. Are you guys loving the fact that after July we're just back and sillier than ever? It's like,
I mean, we're still
so good.
For us in the past, like Dominic Toretto will soon be. We are. We are in the month of July still.
I'm going back to the past. That sounds more like the fucking like Halo announcer guy than Dominic Toretto.
I mean, hey, maybe they're gonna go to Halo. We gotta go save Master Chief.
We gotta teach the Flood about family.
Yeah, we gotta teach him about family. There you go.
But this is Style Direction and Menswear podcast without the stuffiness. I'm Ethan M. Wong.
I'm Spencer Adi.
And today, we're kind of following up, talking about family. No, just kidding. Last 2 weeks ago, we talked about the Esquire man and the vintage illustrations and how cool, just how fun vintage is, and how, like, again, for me, how mind-blowing it was to see all these different patterns and these, like, fun takes on menswear that people don't really associate with vintage. And the response we got is so good on that. I'm saying this preemptively because
it was our most popular episode by far.
That's right.
People are clamoring for more.
Yeah. So we thought we'd kind of talk about, which we've hinted at before, like kind of more niche vintage stuff that we're kind of maybe not into, but things that we've like noticed and seen. And
I mean, this is like when we were talking about the kind of layout of this this episode, we kind of came to the conclusion that it's going to just kind of end up being why we are interested in vintage. Like, so we're going to be talking about a lot of things, a lot of just like, historical clothing trends from like 100 years ago that we probably wouldn't wear, but we just think
probably
are interesting.
Not. But it's okay. Like overall, like vintage is just really cool. I think
Yeah.
most people do like vintage because it's like why people like watch like old films. It's like seeing techniques, these like the origin of like stuff you see today.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that's like what's really fascinating about this. And when you are a vintage enthusiast or a collector, like it's fun to like when you see it out in the wild. You know,
Yeah.
and so there's like, you know, there's a lot of reasons why we like vintage, and there's some stuff in here that maybe, you know, if you're a hardcore like Heddle's Head, maybe they've talked about this before, maybe you've been on the Fedora Lounge, or, you know, you know, some of the stuff might not be new, but hopefully maybe you'll see something that's kind of interesting.
Yeah.
In what we talk about, we've included a couple of pictures, and by couple, you know what that means for Ethan. It means there's a lot, and you're gonna scroll through all of it, but hopefully there's enough there that kind of reference what we're talking
Yeah.
about. Yeah.
So I think right off the bat, one of the things that Ethan and I both really like about vintage clothing and the history of clothing in general is just like seeing how much like variety there was, like how and like, you know, I've talked about this before, but the reason that I think, you know, vintage military or workwear or athletic clothing, all this stuff just visually looks more interesting than like modern stuff is, you know, they didn't have the same shortcuts that you do now. You know, like with modern athletic wear, it's very easy just to make it just like, you know, like stretchy, just add like stretch to it, make it performance fabric. And I'm not saying it doesn't work. It's a lot more, you know, probably practical than a lot of vintage stuff, but it just doesn't look as cool as like, oh yeah, this has like random pleats, so it like stretches in this one area, or it has like all these little bells and whistles that, you know, that's just what they had to do. Yeah.
Yeah. I was going to say, like, you know, a lot of this stuff, obviously, we're, you know, full disclosure, is probably going to focus a lot more on tailoring, just, you know, based on what the podcast is. But again, as we've said before, tailoring was kind of, and I'm speaking very generally, like the kind of mode of dress of everything. So everything kind of has these references to tailored clothing, you know, like so interesting, like pleats and stuff isn't really something we think of now as something that you see in like athletic wear or even workwear, but then when you see it done in those places, you know, like you see like a wide ribbing and like a cropped hem on like a hoodie, it's like it's so cool compared to nowadays where it's like, you know, it's like thin fabric. Yeah, it might be more breathable, might be more, you know, it might be thinner, stretchier, whatever, but for us as guys who like, you know, generally like tailored clothing or at least variations of it, it's like, oh, it's cool to see that, which makes it more aesthetically pleasing for us, you know. That's kind of like a big thing here, as to why we like it. I mean, and as much as said, you know, the creation of the materials, like not just in design, but like the raw materials that they use obviously was a lot cooler. That's my bias, but when things are made of like cotton and actual wool, it just adds like an air of life to it, you know. It's not stuff back then wasn't as I mean, it kind of was specialized. I don't know how to exactly to describe it, but you know,
it's tough because like, I mean, we're just basing this like there's no classes or anything you can take about this. This is all just us.
If there are, please
teaching
tell
ourselves. Us just teaching ourselves based on like old catalog scans that we've seen.
Yeah. So a lot of the stuff that you see,
this is not especially scholarly, I guess.
No, absolutely not. Absolutely not.
But we've spent like years and years just poring over these images. So, you know, we know a thing or two.
Yeah. I mean, we might not even call them by the correct
Well,
name.
because as I was talking about right before we were recording, there's no like any of the things that we're talking about, which I guess we should talk about soon because right now we're just being so vague. None of these styles or design features or anything really had like names. They didn't really have names. They just called them like fancy pockets or like fancy back or something. So it's like up to us to like retroactively assign them names.
Yeah, I mean, it's like Spear Point collar. When you look through like old stuff, you might have seen it, but like, and most of it's like, oh, point collar shirt, like it was just like regular stuff, you know.
Or as an example that we're probably going to get into, like grizzly jackets were never called grizzly jackets in the period. They like that's just something that we call them now.
Yeah, I like there were, I forgot what it's actually. It was like Alaskan lamb jacket. That's what they're called. That's here, I'm gonna, I know this sounds like we're screaming, but here, I'm gonna put this link for Spencer to see. I just added it in there.
Oh, cool.
It's my little album of grizzly jackets. Yeah, they're called Alaskan lambs, and it's like, you know, it's one of those things where jackets like this just don't exist anymore. I mean,
Other than
outside of
yeah, like vintage reproduction.
Yeah, reproduction or like super artisanal stuff like, Himmel Bros and everything. So again, a big draw about this is that, we really like it. And also
It's rare and it doesn't exist anymore.
it doesn't exist anymore. And it's also fun to see with these other brands that we also pay attention to, like what they're referencing, stuff like, in Japan, you got Adjustable Costume, you got Bronson, you got Motive Clothing, and out from China, you've got Scott Fraser, who kind of does a little bit more of like the mid-century casual, Italian knit stuff. You got SJC, which again started by making like the spear point polos that people could never find, out in the wild. And of course, you got like more kind of quote mainstream stuff like Thomas Farthing, which is like like a modern redo of like Edwardian /20 styles and everything like that.
Like double RL, stuff like that.
Yeah, double RL and double RL. Yeah. So this stuff, again, we're probably not going to get to like the 70s because a lot of 70s stuff kind of recreates ideas from this period. So this is kind of more like 1910s-ish to like 1950 or whatever.
Yeah, the stuff that like we're talking about tends to be earlier just because, stuff from like the 70s and 80s hasn't really been like quote unquote lost in the same way that some of these styles have.
Yeah,
at least not yet.
Yeah. So I know what would probably could get started is probably stuff that Spencer wrote in here because I'm just gonna go in order here. But we can start with workwear a little bit. It's smaller. And I know we had that whole episode on Milsurp, and I feel bad that we're not doing its own workwear one, but I feel like there's just not as much to talk about there. But
maybe we'll do one in the future, but workwear is like has had its moment. Like, I'm not saying it's like, oh, it's over. I still wear workwear shit. I'm wearing a chambray shirt right now. But, it's like, I don't know. I feel like the reason that this section is shorter compared to other stuff is because a lot of workwear is kind of still around. Like, they're not as cool, but, like, if you see construction, you will see guys wearing, like, coveralls and technically chore suits.
That's true. I remember one time, like a long time ago, like maybe like 3 or 4 years ago, Spencer got a like cotton twill like chore blazer, and that was one of the first times that I had ever seen a chore blazer out. Like it was like 2-button. It was like very short. I
can't. I bought it at Inspiration, but it was interesting. Like no one could tell me how old it was because it was like. There were no tags in it. Like a lot of it, some people were like, "Oh, it could have been handmade," but yeah, it was this tan chore blazer, anywhere from like the 1920s to the 1950s. Like, everyone I took it to told me it was a different age.
Yeah, so that was not exactly kind of niche, but at least for the time, it was like really cool to see like people had like chore suits.
Yeah, because it's like I see
kind of a big thing.
It's like, and the other thing is like you see chore blazers all the time now at like, Walls and Barnes or like, fucking everyone's making a version of the game suit or whatever, or the Bedford suit. But yeah, it's you don't really see many like actual vintage examples.
Yeah, absolutely. You look at, hopefully, I think we have some pictures of like some really cool like shirts that they had. Also, like stuff that you really just don't really see much of. You see a lot of like variations of denim jackets, not just like type 1, type 2, but like cattleman jackets, like kind of like moon-shaped pockets, like knife pleats down the front or down the sides and everything. Western details. Well,
because the thing that I think people sometimes forget is like, you think of like, oh, like, denim jackets, like, vintage denim jackets, you think of like just Levi's and Lee's or maybe like Bluebell or whatever. But just like there's a shit ton of like no-name brands making knockoffs of like Levi's denim jackets now, still had the same thing back then too. So there's, again, just like a ton of variety. If you look deeper, it's a lot different than just like a Levi's Type 1.
And that's why, on that same note, fucking leather jackets.
Oh, yeah.
Like, there's just so much different types. Like, everyone, I absolutely hate it. Not hate it, that's a strong word. Sorry, I'll just. But, like, when you go on MFA or something, like, oh, just get, like, the racer jacket or, like, Indiana Jones one. Dude, there's so many different variations of leather jackets. As we know, like, leather jackets kind of ish started from military, but, like we assume like, oh yeah, the A1 was like one of the first like leather jackets, but then you see like pictures of like,
well,
fucking like regular dudes.
We've been wearing like leather jackets like since like prehistory technically,
Yeah,
But
I guess I'm talking about like the bluson style,
yeah, like
waist
those
length
like
ones.
those leather short jackets.
Yeah, I mean, you see, like again, this is we still have a lot of tailoring to cover, but like, what's really helpful for this, and I'm sure maybe again this is why this section's shorter, but Lightning has released like or like those big compendium of like
Oh, that's
collectors
right.
of
Yeah.
like leather jackets, military jackets, and workwear jackets or denim jackets, and so you can really see a lot of the great again variations that people like Mr. Freedom, Double RL kind of pull from when creating their other like modern
Mhm.
interpretations of their jackets. And so with like leather ones, like you have like I tried to cover some of them in my essay on leather jackets. I kind of just put them into two groups. It's like it's either a zip front or a biker jacket or it's a button front. There's like three different kinds of versions there. But then even then there's like a bunch of like deep pocket shit,
Or they had like pullovers. They had like pullover leather jackets. Like you can even you can see like it's crazy. And once again, like all this stuff with workwear and sportswear, this was like the performance clothing, the tech wear of the past. And doesn't it just look
Yeah,
much cooler
fucking
than
map-
like some
yeah.
some fucking like gray like shell jacket with a meshed lining and a million pockets? It looks cooler.
Yeah, you see the stuff replicators get the ideas in today, but like one of the draws about this is when you either see a photograph of it or if you're lucky enough you find it at like a flea market like just randomly, like that is some of the coolest shit, and it just shows you like nothing is really all that, as we said in the Esquire episode, nothing is really all that new, I can just imagine like pulling out like two 40s black double rider jackets and they're both kind of different, not just in terms of like like the collar could be different, like the pockets could be different, the zip style and everything. It's fucking crazy. And seeing all of this, is makes you wonder, why don't we just have this stuff anymore? I mean, maybe the reason why people don't like menswear is because menswear's gotten so fucking boring.
Seriously,
it's just gotten
we need
the same
more
stuff.
variety in everything. Everything's getting so fucking boring.
Yeah, it's like one of those things where I know this is slightly off topic. Maybe this is topic for a stream, but I think Aldrich had a good point where he said like people complain that menswear is boring, but then when people try and change it, they say, "No, you can't do that," because they want it to be boring. Like it's like they hate it, but they want to keep it there, and that's why I really like when you get to pull vintage. It's like, well, look at just how much fun people had with designs. Obviously, like in the greater scheme of things, you still look like a 1940s dad. There wasn't like a streetwear aspect, or there wasn't like fucking. I guess there was kind of athleisure in the sense of like sweatpants and everything, but like there wasn't like a variety of different styles. There wasn't this concept of like Japan style, Korean style, or whatever. But in this small niche of classic menswear, there was just so much stuff out there. Whereas now, as Spencer said, like you just have knockoffs of like Type 3 jackets now. Everyone makes that. There's no a small like Cotton On's not gonna make a fucking their own denim jacket with like a bi-swing pack.
I mean, hey, you could see this with like I just saw someone posted a TikTok in one of our menswear chats that I honestly thought was kind of dumb, but I guess they kind of made a point where it's like it was the thing that Aldous was talking about, where it was like the TikTok of the person getting made fun of for wearing like a plaid shirt on a date or whatever. And then the TikTok was this person saying, well, actually, there are only 3 types of shirts that men can wear. And it's like aloha, solid, or plaid. And well, again, I think that's kind of dumb because I disagree. I guess she has kind of a point in that if you are only shopping at like fucking Kohl's, that's all you have. But look at like old, again, not even like digging that deep into niche vintage stores. Like look at an old Sears catalog at the casual shirt section, and it's like it's just crazy stuff. They're going nutso in there, man.
Yeah, it's just weird, I think this series of essays and podcasts is kind of like it's for people who don't believe that menswear can be cool, and also people who think that classic clothing or vintage clothing was boring.
Yeah, it's just weird to me. It's just it's always weird to me when people like think about the past like as just people walking around like fucking like black and white, all like everything's very boring,
gray flannel suits,
where I'm not saying everything was great, but the clothes, like there was just more variety there, like objectively.
I mean, before we get out to it, I mean like Western wear, like that was fucking crazy, like I love like, I mean, you might look like, who's that, like Hank Williams like fucking wearing some
Yeah,
crazy
like
shirts.
a nudie suit.
Yeah, nudie suits. Like there's so much like people. Maybe we wouldn't wear it, but it's fun to think of Western wear as more than just like fucking
Like a denim sawtooth shirt and stuff. But yeah, it's like 1920s and 1930s Western wear. I mean, a lot of this was like, costume, but so was like most Western wear today. But yeah, it was crazy. It's not just like a sawtooth and jeans, which again is fine. I wear that all the time. But yeah, it's like these wild silk shirts with like all this embroidery on it. They like huge like chaps or whatever, giant hats. Yeah, people knew how to just have fun with it. People knew how to have fun with clothing.
Yeah, it's just so like it's kind of sad when you don't, get to see people appreciate this. Well, maybe they don't see because they don't see it. This is why you have to listen to this and watch it. But before,
you want to go on.
Before we move on, I want to shout out the LL Bean Sport Vest. It's a really good example of like a fucking cool ass thing, like that is. Yeah, a great example of like tailoring meets workwear in a sense that you just don't really you don't really see in general this kind of mixture of utilitarian. And it's not. I mean, it's a vest with sleeves and pockets. It's not like fucking crazy, but it is crazy when you realize like people don't do it right. Like nowadays, everything is so specialized, or you have like a tool belt or whatever. You don't really like put use a jacket like to do stuff. And the L Bean Sport Vest is one of those things that was like super niche. I wrote an essay about it, but it's basically like I said, it's like think of like a vest that has sleeves and has like 4 patch pockets on the on the chest area, and like that's it. But it's just so unique looking. It's like, is it a cardigan without like that's like tailored? Is it like a jacket that doesn't have lapels on it? Like it's a weird fucking thing, and it's just so nice. It goes with everything. I use it, I mean, it's obviously too hot to wear now, but I do have a cotton version that I found.
Oh, that's right, the white cotton one.
Yeah, that I got from Western Gifts. No, sorry, not Garrett, but I got from Keith, which Vintage Warrior. And that's a good example of something that's kind of niche that also like kind of seems kind of like Japanese in its style because of like how short it is, and because Japanese brands have like appropriated it because they really like that style. People, I think like Beams made a version of it, and you can see like the Penthes has like what they call like their cardigan jacket with like out of ripstop, which is like just like a lapel-less jacket kind of a thing. Kanye tried to make lapel-less jackets come back, so it's really cool to see like this idea of what that was has kind of like precedent in this kind of a thing, and people did wear it. I mean, I tried to find photographs of people wearing it that weren't like modern collectors. But yeah, it's just so fucking cool. Like there's so many different variations of it. I think I saw one that like Woolrich had made. But there is the classic L Bean one has like the red and black houndstooth arms, and then like a gray a brown body. But yeah, like the L Bean Sport Vesting is just super cool. I also, before I move on, I do want to say Mackinac jackets are cool too.
Oh yeah,
like that's kind of fun.
Because like plaid, red plaid jackets. Those are a thing that I feel like.
Do people know about these ones? Maybe they do. Like,
I guess
think of like the buffalo check ones.
I guess yeah, okay. If we're talking like older Mackinac, like the double-breasted, full-belted, those are cool. Those aren't really around anymore. I feel like the later versions, like the zip front, just like red plaid jackets. Everyone, you're not. I mean, I don't own one, but it's like I feel like it's a nice thing to have.
Also,
I would have both. The belted. Sometimes you don't need the. Sometimes you don't need the belt. If I had
unlimited storage space, I'd have I'd have every variation of all menswear, obviously. But I don't know. I think one big thing before we get into tailoring and shoot in a second. Belts are fucking cool.
Yeah, fully belted things are cool.
A big theme here, but basically, if you don't know what a Mackinac jacket
I know you
is,
don't like safari jackets, but man, maybe I should wear that now that I'm thinking about belts.
There you go. Wear it today. Yeah. I just want to say, like, the Mackinac jacket, if you don't know what it is, it's basically like a pea coat style. It's like a right above knee length jackets. Usually got double breasted. It's got like a very big dramatic collar, and it's got a belt sometimes. Usually made out of like the original's made out of like a buffalo plaid. But you see like variations like like red plaid or green plaid, blue plaid. You see all that kind of stuff.
Again, there's really a huge variety.
Yeah, there's a lot of variety that you don't see anymore because now, like I like to call it like nerd or theater kid energy. When the kid wants to dress up, he wears like a flat cap and like a pea coat. Like no, like that's not like, please don't do that.
Yeah.
But okay, let's move on to some more of a tailoring stuff. I know because we're like halfway through this, but right up next we have shoes. Now shoes, okay, shoes are crazy because number one,
shoes first are crazy, man.
Yeah, crazy. You didn't. Like, not everyone wore Oxfords. Yeah. Like, it's not, like, that's not kind of, I mean, people did wear them, but, like, it wasn't, like, the only shoe you had. Well, you still had, like, derbies and shit.
I think the thing to keep in mind is people are now talking about the post-sneaker world. This is the pre-sneaker world. So, they didn't have sneakers to take the place of their, to just wear every day with their casual wardrobe. So, you had to have more casual leather shoes. Of course, there were, like, canvas deck shoes and stuff, but most people were not wearing those unless you were like a sailor or like working, like living right near the beach. Or
playing sports or something.
Yeah, exactly.
It's that's a really good point. I mean, this whole thing is pre-casual clothing in it, or pre-casual styles, right?
Yeah.
Like I said earlier. And so, you just had there's a couple of images of this in the Esquire, but we'll probably include some more, but like you did have like loafers, you had variations of like mock-toed shoes. You had like crepe-soled shoes. You had like side fastening, like
we kept. I can't remember if we mentioned this in the Esquire article, but yeah, we kept seeing like illustrations for like suede single monk shoes, which were like apparently a big summer trend in the 30s.
Yeah. It's
like
crazy.
Suede single monk with crepe soles, so not just a suede single monk.
Yeah, you had all of that together, and it's kind of sad. But then one thing also about shoes back then, at least in the 30s, it was in early late 20s. This thing called like the spade sole, which is like, we'll put a picture of it, but it's kind of cool, but also like
it's uncomfortable sometimes.
Yeah, it looks weird. So it literally, like, if you think of like the spade, like a not the shovel, but like the what do you call
playing card symbol?
The playing card kind of thing. Yeah. It's like a kind of like a wide top. I'm not a good shoe person. Like the toe box area, it's kind of like, it expands, and then it gets really small in the waist. And then it kind of goes back out again, so it looks like a spade. It looks kind of pointy, kind of like an arrow in a sense. And a lot of shoes back then, or not a lot, but like it was like a trend to have shoes in this style. Usually, it also meant that the sole itself was a little bit expanded. Like, like how nowadays you have like a really thick sole, or like the kind of like stitching that happens on Goodyear welts. Like, you had that kind of more exposed.
But it was a very it's a very dramatic shape. It's like one of those things where it's like, hey, you know it when you see it. You just immediately recognize it.
Yeah, it doesn't look that. I mean, some of the extreme ones don't look that cool, but when you can see nowadays when and vintage guys always complain that shoes today don't look this, and it's kind of true, because shoes that like Aldo look like shit. But then when you see like shoes like the Armory sells or whatever, like not just English shoes but like Japanese shoes, like bespoke shoes, they still retain that kind of very sleek shape, the waisted in the midsection area, like, so they do keep this kind of idea kind of alive.
And it looks like very cool. Like, you see, I mean, like, we're gonna get into like two-tone shoes and Spectators, but I think like I'm looking at a picture right now of like chocolate brown suede with like alligator toe, like it's a Spectator, and on a spade sole, like that specifically, that combo looks so slick. It looks very cool with that shape.
Yeah, it's really wild. I mean, the thing is, I don't know how good the leather was back then, because like, people made shoes all the time. Again, like Spencer said, like this was like your casual, like you had to have shoes for casual wear, and so I don't know like if they were made to the same degree as today, but maybe they were because they had to be handmade anyway. I don't know.
Well, what I've heard is that construction of shoes tended to be better than it is today, but the leather was worse.
That makes a lot more sense, I think.
Yeah.
But hey, you mentioned Spectators, man. So Spectators back then, it just wasn't like just two tones. There was like so many variations of spectators.
Well, because I feel like spectators kind of get a bad rap, and I understand it because most of the time you think of the shitty like La La Land like dance shoes, very cheap like black and white, like patent leather or whatever. But no, I think like vintage spectator. I like Capto spectators. I think if we were getting into, I talked about like two-tone, not just in color, but like using different fabrics or like construction materials, which I think is really cool. And you get a lot more than just the basic like brogue wingtip two-tone. You get like you get. I'm trying to find the pictures in the fucking like 1,000-image album that we have. But yeah, you get like these crazy like zigzag patterns and like crisscross designs with the leather that like I can't think of any brand making things like that today.
Yeah, it's one of those things, right, where it's kind of hard to think if you could pull it off, but like it's just cool to have that option. Like perforations, like different materials. It's just kind of wild to, again, you're gonna hear that a lot, but it's just
everything's wild.
I wish you could see more of that today. One thing also that I wanted to mention is that shoes, like in addition to being very sleek, there also was like a trend to like have like the like square toed in the front, like it's kind of like an Edwardian thing, which came back in like the 70s. It's dumb, but it happened. I mean, maybe at the end of this, you can talk to us, leave a comment on this episode, and let us know which of these things that you'd actually like to come back, and maybe and
we'll make it happen.
We're gonna go to Alden. We're gonna go to, I can't think of Allen Edmonds. We're gonna bring it back to its former glory. You had loafers. You had tassels. That's back then. I think they call them like Norwegian. Like there's also like a penny loafer, which the illustration has as one of the only examples of like sockless I could find, at least from like a guide standpoint.
Oh yeah.
And they call it like a Norwegian slipper, even though it's like a penny loafer, which is fucking crazy. But on that note, the real crazy one is the espadrilles. Now everyone thinks espadrilles is like the Tom's looking stuff, but back then, man, you had like, and I'm sure some of you guys in Europe might see this more, but like for us Americans, it's crazy like to see like an espadrille that like wraps around your leg or like your calf area. That one was always cool, and I remember I got them after.
Well, Diego still makes those, and I've thought about. I kind of want some still. Because they're just they're so unique, and there's a picture of, I think it's like John Wayne wearing them, and it's like, say what you will about John Wayne as a man, but he looked very relaxed wearing those sandals on the beach, and I'll say I want to feel that relaxation.
Yeah, I think what you get from all this stuff is that not only do you get when you have all this variation, a lot more casual options that are more interesting, but you also get like a very elegant option.
Yeah.
Like,
or you could use those. We've seen these in like Esquire, and then Yucatan makes a pair of those like they're not slippers necessarily, but just kind of like leather. They have like a heel and leather sole, but just that kind of like leather woven slipper or whatever. Like that. Yucatan is the only brand that I can think of making one like that. But like I see that, I'm like, that is like the most elegant like summer relaxation shoe I've ever seen. Like I can't imagine like how good that would look with like a white suit, like at Pity or whatever. I can't believe no one's making these for Pity.
And I mean, maybe, I just really want to see more stuff come back. And then so speaking of other stuff, I mean, so tailoring. It's kind of, this is probably going to take up the rest of the entire episode here now. Because, again, like we said, there was just so much variation. I mean, in shirt collars alone, there was just so much stuff. Even before this, I mean, the fact that nowadays all you really have is like button-down collar, of course in varying widths and lengths and everything, and like a spread collar. But, man, I'm sure you guys have seen it in the early 20s and before that. The stiff collar variations, there's just so much.
Well, because again, I think most of our audience probably knows this, but for those that don't, from the like 19th century, like mid 19th century until like the early mid 20s, like most men were wearing detachable collar shirts. So you could just take off the shirt collar, wash that, They would do the same thing with the cuffs, and then you could just, it's a lot easier just to wash the collar than it is to wash the entire shirt.
Yeah, and so if you wanted to change up your look, it's also a good way to invest in a couple of different collars.
Exactly. And so you see this like a lot in photographs and like, period pieces, obviously, because it's what most people are wearing for like 80 years. But yeah, it's like the thing that I always see in like period pieces is that they never do something which I have seen a lot in photos, which is they wear a patterned shirt with a different patterned collar. Like, people would just, like, fucking, like, mix and match and wear the craziest combos. And, again, I probably wouldn't do it because a lot of them look ridiculous. But it's just, again, it was, like, it's weird to see these people from this time, which, most people assume is very, like, reserved and conservative. And there's guys just having a lot more fun with their clothes than almost anyone is today.
Yeah, you might think it's probably like just practicality or forced versatility where, like, maybe back then they didn't actually have a lot. Maybe they had a bunch of shirt, like bodies, but not much of collar, so they just kind of wear it with whatever. Or they could just be like fashionistas and they just like to wear them. But like,
yeah, I think it's like, you could decide from the context of the photo what they're doing.
Yeah, but yeah, like there's some great shirt patterns. You can probably only see it if you're doing bespoke. Mm-hmm. And again, like, it's that thing I said before where like menswear has gotten to the point where it's just occasion wearing, and if you're only gonna have it once, then you're probably only going to have it in one solid color, which is, I get it. But, back then, like, it was so complex to have, like, so many stripes and checks and deco print designs on, like, woven into the shirt and jacquard fabrics and everything.
And it's weird because, like, I feel like, unless you're going to, like, slightly, maybe not even high-end brands, but just, like, slightly more high-end brands, you are not going to find even just like multi-stripes in most men's shirts. Most of the shirts that I was selling at J. Crew were just solid stripes. I think we got like one multi-stripe in once, and I always tried to push that, and no one ever bought it.
Yeah, that's unfortunate.
Mm-hmm.
It's
But yeah, like my favorite type of shirt, and I don't have a lot of them just because they're they're really hard to find. But if I could, I would fill my entire shirt wardrobe with just like 1920s and 30s like multi-stripe or jacquard weave spear point shirts.
Hell yeah!
Just because I personally find them really easy to wear. Like I was talking to Chris about those, and he's like, "Oh, how do you wear those?" And I'm like, "You literally just treat it like a striped shirt." And it's like so easy to wear it that way, but it just looks more interesting and looks cooler than just, a
lot of this
shirt.
stuff, like you think about, like, we're going to get into some crazy tailored stuff in a second, but like you think about how weird it is, how niche it is today, but if you just treat it like with whatever, like you'll be able to pull it off. Just like we had a whole episode on the spear point collar, and I said I just treat it like a regular shirt.
Exactly.
You also had like, club collar shirts, which are kind of fun, variations of that, whether or not they were attached, or what do you call it, like the
stiff collar or whatever.
No, like what do you call it when you have like the attached, like they pull
the tab
together.
The
tab collar. Yeah, you had some of those in the club style and everything, so that was kind of like a fun niche piece. Not really niche because they were pretty common.
Yeah,
they kind of went out of favor for a little bit when they came back in the 60s.
Yeah, they I think they kind of more or less stuck around. Like they were in the 30s. I think they were like part of the kind of like pre-heyday Ivy look. And then if you watch like stuff from the 50s and 60s set around Madison Avenue, you'll see guys wearing like club collars.
Well, let's go from the top now to the bottom, or below the waist, but let's talk about trousers for a little bit here. So in general, you think that trousers are easy, right? Like, it's either pleats, it's either cuffed or not, high-waisted, mid-rise, whatever. But back then, when those were everything you wear, you got to find some way to make it more interesting. So, boom, you got different type of waists. And, so, like, side tabs, Dax adjusters, which are, like, the kind of elastic ones you had. And you also, first off, on side adjusters, you either had it at, like, the waist, sometimes it's near the back, There's a bunch of different variations. You had extended waistbands that go off to, that are very Italian nowadays.
We'll get into collegiate wear with, like, those crazy.
We are, yeah. But one popular one that's kind of like niche to most, but like not really niche in menswear because it's kind of having a moment, or it did have a moment in 2017, is the Hollywood waist, and that is where it's two things. Technically, the Hollywood waist is where you have the one-piece waistband, where it's just a continuous, like the trousers, like there is no seam for the waistband. It's all one thing. But the true Hollywood waist to me is when you have that aspect combined with dropped loops. So the belt loops are just done maybe like a quarter to half an inch below the waistband, and the loops are also usually smaller, so they need like a thinner belt. That is a cool look. It is super like,
and I think it's like it can be like super flattering because like honestly, like like they're super high waisted, usually very wide. They have like these, at least the ones that I like, most of the ones that I've seen have like really deep pleats. And I think it's just like, it looks so good when it's like the wide leg that kind of like tapers up into this like very slim waist, because that's what it ended up looking like when it's like the single waistband construction.
And then you pull it tight with a thin belt that we talked about in the belt podcast. It's just so cool. I think probably this only really works with gabardine pants. Like, I don't think there's nothing that drapes as well as vintage gabardine. I don't know if modern wool gabardines are ever going to be as good as it was in the 40s and maybe early 50s, but it is so cool. You also had like fishtail backs, which is probably more of like a three-piece suit thing, kind of earlier, kind of more for tuxedos.
Because it's like, because I think like, if we're getting like really, really early, a lot of pants that I've seen from like the 19th century and like early 20th century have like a fishtail, whether they're workwear or, for like formal wear. But it's like a detail that kind of stuck around on like more traditional stuff. Like I think you still see it today on like morning dress and like, and if you're gutting like a tuxedo or white tie from a high end tailor, they'll probably give it a fishtail.
Yeah, you might see it some workwear like some modern stuff too. Like if it's like a Japanese brand, I think you can kind of see some of that stuff too.
But it's like if you are wearing suspenders, a fishtail back is actually like thumbs up. It's like very nice.
So for example, the back part of the waistband kind of goes up and tapers, like it gets higher than your normal waist, and it has like a section that looks like a fishtail, and those two parts of the fin or whatever are where your back braces would attach to. So and I think give to the part of the trouser.
And as you said, it was worn a lot with three-piece suits. I think part of the reason was also so it would like cover up your shirt at the at the back of the vest.
Exactly.
So see, it's a practical thing. Like, wouldn't you like to have that if you're wearing a three-piece suit? Wouldn't you like to have that?
Modern three-piece suits. We need to talk about like the length of waist. We talked about kind of deal breakers, but it's just so modern waistcoats are just too long and pants are just too low in the rise.
Get rid of them.
You also have the cinch back trousers, which are kind of cool. That's kind of more niche. It's a little bit more workwear, and it kind of translated to collegiate wear.
Yeah, it was like
Ivy.
In the 50s, it was like an Ivy thing to wear like cinch back chinos. And I think back then that probably was like, it's like a throwback to like old school workwear. Because it's something that you saw, that's something that you saw a lot like pre-40s on like work pants. And I think they look cool. I really like cinch back pants. I just think that extra detail poking out from underneath a jacket, that extra bit of hardware, looks really cool. It's like a menswear tramp stamp or something, and I want it.
Menswear tramp stamp.
Yeah.
But those are there's a lot of. We'll get more at the collegiate wear in a second after. But before we do get into, I know I put Palm Beach here, but that should have been in the tailoring part. But we got to go back to shirts for a second because we got to talk about rayon shirts, man.
Oh my God, yes! Like I think we've talked a lot recently about how good rayon gabardine shirts are.
Yeah.
And we're gonna keep doing it until people make more of them.
Yeah. So obviously it's coming back nowadays in a little bit. You see like the Tencel rayon shirts that don't feel like vintage rayon gab. But so back then, obviously, like rayon shirts were like the casual shirt. You still had like cotton and chambray work shirts or whatever, but around like the 30s or so is when like rayon started like really to get more popular. And so, and especially as the sport shirt collar, the loop collar shirt, Cuban collar, whatever you want to call it, as that collar style got more popular, it kind of just worked for for rayon as like a match. And so this is something that again is not really that niche. It's just kind of great to find. I think prices are going up because people are starting to see, like, people are like seeing like Ame Leon Dore make some, but then they're like, oh, I want the originals now, you know?
Well, because the thing that I think is great about Rayon Gab is how like it. I don't know if this is how it felt originally, but like vintage Rayon Gab, if you handle it, it has this very like kind of soft, like smooth, like spongy feel to it. Yeah. And obviously the vintage ones have the benefit of being like 80 years old, but my God, like it just ages and breaks in like nothing else.
And
so good.
Yeah, when you have that and the niche stuff that comes up, like the Aloha shirts are so good, the floral patterns are great.
And a lot of like early Aloha shirts were also, you got a lot more variety because now I feel like everyone's doing the same like fucking like 3 types of patterns. But if you look at like old like Aloha shirts, there were a lot of like weird ones that were like photo collages, or these like really unique and like, you know, like avant-garde illustrations and stuff like that.
Yeah. I mean, also like this was also the fabric for like a lot of Western wear too. And so you see like, I have a bunch of Western shirts that I actually did not know existed in this way until I started like finding them, you know, these like sawtooth rayon Gab shirts in like black and green, and sometimes they have like the embroidery or like the piping on the edges, but they're just so good. But other like niche shirts that you don't really see, like spear point collar polos, like I mean the original polo shirts had spear point collars. They didn't have the fucking bacon whatever that like the one that we have now. You had like spear point stuff. You see that on like the old Lacoste stuff or like the images in like the 30s or whatever, because they were based on like the button down or whatever. You had also on that note gaucho shirts, which I've written about in the past before, which is kind of this fun like polo style shirt that is like a lot more, I don't know why it's called gaucho, it's probably racist or something, because it's a very California kind of a thing, where you had like these pop over stuff that were kind of similar to the integral collar shirts that Drake's made, but they were, you know, huge ribbing, crazy designs like stripes, checked gabardines, you know, plain stuff. They had like a built-in like Dickie shirt collar, like so like like you had like the spear point or like the kind of like a sport collar that kind of goes into a V, but then you had like a built-in that first part of like a crew neck right there made out of like cotton or something. So you had those gaucho shirts, which are super cool. Again, different variations. They're kind of like basically again a mix between a sport shirt with a Cuban collar and a polo shirt.
I really like the one that you have that doesn't have like the Dickie underneath, but it's just like the kind of knit bottom sport shirt. Do you still have that one, or did you get rid of it?
No, that one was too small, man.
Okay, that one is my favorite style. I really like those.
That was so small. Yeah, I only have the blue check one, which is funny because our friend Chris got a sport shirt in the exact same fabric. Mine, neither of ours have labels, I think, so we can't see if like, you know, maybe just like a bunch of brands just bought fabric and just made their fucking shirts. That's just how it was, you know. You also had, as they're coming back now, knit tees were a big thing in like the 40s and 50s. You know, I had some like, you know, the fun novelty designs you see from like I think Groove and High or whatever made like those like, you know, like they had ships and Western wear on them.
Does Bryceland's make them with Groove and High, or does Bryceland's make their own?
I don't remember. It could also be a different company as well. Yeah. But you also had the fucking like mesh shirts.
Oh yeah, I think we talked about this in like the Esquire Man article, or episode, whatever. But yeah, there was a lot of beaches had like anti-male nudity laws, so it's like you couldn't take your shirt off. So guys would just wear like mesh shirts to the beach.
It's funny. I don't know if I said this, but like I had the opportunity to buy one of these at Rose Bowl for $20, and I didn't buy it because I was like, I don't know if I'm ever gonna wear this thing. It could have been for Marco, as we know Marco wears. Those
it would have been fun. I think it would just fit. I'm just loose with my money. I would have bought it just for the novelty. Like I think they're just fun.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, back then I didn't even have a terry cloth shirt or like good swim shorts or whatever. It was also because again, it's a little anecdote. So it was raining at the Rose Bowl. So the guy was like, "Dude, just give me $20 and you can have it." And I was like, can't do it. I don't know if I mean this is $20, man. I should have bought it. I keep wanting to see if I can find it one more time, but he probably sold it. And before we move on, I know we talked this before, but sweatshirts and sweaters and everything.
Oh yeah.
Well, sweaters first off were just cut shorter. You also had a lot of novelty designs.
V. Oh, that's right.
Yeah, but like the Jansen stuff for the fucking crazy, like, you know, like not just Christmas sweaters, but like geometrics, and it's just so
Or
cool.
like, you know, like you find like a lot of kids stuff from the 50s that has like, you know, like
Hopalong Cassidy.
Yeah, or like Howdy Doody or whatever, or like, you know, like a sweater from the 30s that has like Mickey Mouse or Babe Ruth. It's, you know, it's fun. It's like the graphic tee, like the equivalent of graphic tees have been around for a while, you know?
Yeah, they came in. As I said, like, you know, some of them were in T-shirts for like organizations, and a lot of the novelty designs were the sweaters. But you had sweatshirts, which I don't know why they don't do this today, dude. Put fucking like patch pockets on your hoodies, bro. Like, it's just, come on, it's just
great,
so cool.
yeah.
Two-tone designs. You don't gotta find, you know, fucking, you know, navy blue, gray, or whatever. Like, fucking
I
shit,
like a lot of the after hood hoodies, which I don't know if this was like I don't know like the actual origin story of these, but they're sweatshirts that have a hood put on, but it's not like, it's just like a hood sewn onto a sweatshirt. And so I'm not sure if that was like a home repair or something that like a factory would have done just cheaply, but like I think that's super cool. And I think like maybe like Wallace and Barnes did it, or like Double RL and stuff does it, but man, I just want more.
Yeah. So now let's move on to our favorite topic, tailoring. Now
Please.
This is going to be, I know. So first off, I mean, suits in general have like, you know, until like, maybe the 70s was the last part where we had crazy suits, but like when guys had to wear trousers and a jacket, like there was so much variation, like Edwardian styles. I mean, the concept of like the modern suit didn't really come about in terms of conservative design until like the 20s. I know that the neckties were like the same way, where like I was talking to our friend Damien from Menswear's company, where he said that, you know, before 1920s, ties were crazy, like different lengths, different widths.
It wasn't
and
like
and
as
angles.
Standardized. Nothing.
Yeah, and then something
standardized.
happened. I think maybe the tie makers were like, okay, well, people aren't. We need to like standardize all these ties. So I'm wondering if the same thing happened to tailoring, because in Edwardian stuff, like you had a lot of like also kicked off into the 20s, where you had like belted suits, were like kind of like a safari jacket if you think about it, but like more so like a
like Norfolk style maybe.
more of like a Norfolk style, but like, you know, maybe even though Norfolks technically have like the shoulder pleats that go down through the body, you also have like regular suits that have like, you know, like a 3-roll-2 front or a 3-button front that just straight up has a belt in the middle. Like there's just no none of the Norfolk shoulders or body pleats on it. You know, you had like triple quadruple button flat pockets, man. It was crazy. You know, you saw those, you know, with like regular lapels, peak lapels of different sizes. You had like DBs with notch lapels with like 4 3-button, you know. You had,
and because
DBs
you also
with
have to remember
pockets.
that at this time a lot of guys were like literally having their stuff made at home or going to like a local tailor. It wasn't as much. I mean, this is, you know, like, you know, pre like 1930s, but it wasn't nearly as much like I'm going to a big store to get like a suit made by a big company.
Yeah, exactly. And so you have a lot of like these kind of like micro trends too, when like guys would just do something and maybe they heard about it from their friends, maybe had Esquire reporting on some of this stuff. I mean, I've included a couple of pictures of, there's like a tailoring catalog I have of like 1917 or whatever. That's kind of out of order, I guess.
Oh no.
But like, yeah, you have like all these different variations of suits. Yeah, I'm looking at one right now. Like you had a 3-button jacket where they unbuttoned the top button instead of the bottom one. And then there's like a belt in it, and then there's pleats in the midsection. It's crazy, and the trousers are quite slim, jackets are cut quite short, you know. So much variation, but what I love is like the kind of more localized or the age specific niche stuff, like the collegiate styles and collegiate stuff. It's basically, you know, like today, a lot of what it's always been around, right? Young guys are kind of, or young kids in like high school, college, are kind of dictating how the trends kind of go, and that was especially true during tailoring.
Yeah.
In this area, and so you had stuff that were like, I don't even know how to describe specific. Like you, like especially mentioned before, like waistbands were a big thing. Where to separate your waistband style from other stuff, you had like crazy thick waistbands with like sailor
like button
style
stacks,
buttons.
like three high. It had like weird, like buckles and pleats. And yeah, they like went up to your fucking like nipples, just like these and you can look at catalogs and it's like 2 pages of variations of that kind of pant.
Even the fabric itself was very collegiate. Like you had, like they love like multi-stripe trousers and odd trousers for
like
collegiate
crazy
style stuff.
like silk shirts and wild plaids and patterns on their trousers.
Yeah, it's absolutely like like button flap pockets on the pants, on the fucking pants, and then you have like the jackets, which were like, I don't know what it was, like they were, I know we talked about in the 30s how things had like a lot more of like a pagoda shoulder and like nipped waist, and then the 40s, like the late 30s and 40s, it got kind of more equalized out. I mean, those pagoda shoulders in the 30s were just even more exaggerated. You had like, maybe it's because they wanted to look dramatic while dancing. So you had a very strong, like scalloped shoulder line, short jacket length, crazy like open like curved quarters, and then like wide horizontal peak lapels, like single button or 2 button to emphasize
really suppressed waist.
Really suppressed waist. Absolutely crazy. You also had, maybe like, 3-piece suits, we could debate whether or not how popular they were, because, there's lots of examples of guys not wearing 3-piece suits back in the 30s. But you had the concept of the odd vest, and for collegiate stuff, like they were reversible, they were two-tone, like they had like...
So there's like a specific like style of vest that you see a lot in illustrations, and as far as I know, there are like no existing examples. So like when I was hanging out in like vintage Facebook groups, there would be a lot of debates on literally like, how did these actually function? But you would see these like 2-tone double-breasted vests. It's usually just like one button, like one functioning button. The lapels are a different color, and they have a belt in the front. Yeah. And so there's not any illustrations that I've seen of guys just wearing the vest, so you don't really see, does the belt go all the way around? Is it just in the front? Like, what is it? And it's, again, like, with all these things, like, there's just some, like, there's a mythos around it because it literally doesn't exist anymore. Like, there's no way to see this. You have to just look at images and, like, photographs.
Yeah, it's, it's one of those things where obviously, like, we probably wouldn't wear these today as much as we love tailoring,
but I'd love to see them in a museum.
In a museum, yeah, because it's just proof that, it's crazy that where these guys are like, what we're gonna do, we're gonna look fucking great in our suits, and they're gonna like go crazy with the fucking styles, man.
I mean, we could talk about like briefly like earlier versions of this kind of collegiate look, like Rah-Rah suits, like maybe. That's like that was
early
like
1900s to the 10s, yeah.
Yeah, so that was like firmly in the Edwardian era, and that's like again like before suits had kind of been standardized, so everything is just buck wild. Like I'm talking about like suits with like sawtooth like buttons, or like sawtooth breast pockets and hip pockets. Like it's something called a dip front. So it. How would you describe the shape of this jacket? Like really narrow shoulders, very long, but it like flares out at the hips and has like a very sharp quarter. I don't know if I would describe it as flattering on anybody.
yeah, you want to look pear-shaped? Like,
but it's just, and then you would wear them with these very peg legs, so you have like super wide hips and super narrow ankles, and again, I don't know why they dress like this. Like here's a dude who has a pocket on his sleeve. Yeah.
It's so weird. I mean, shout out, by the way, Vintage Dancer, who actually has a lot of images of this stuff on their website. I don't really know who runs them, but kind of really cool to see that they've archived this stuff.
Mhm.
But yeah, snappy styles and patterns in young men's suits. Imagine being like 1900 and like 1906. You know, there's not even World War II yet, or World War World War II hadn't happened yet. Neither did
Yeah.
World War One.
Neither
But
of them.
like wearing like this with like fucking like crazy wild multi-stripe jacket fabrics, and being like, fuck yeah, I get bitches. Like it's like I'm a cool dude right now. You know.
Yeah, you're slaying those Gibson girls, man.
Yeah, I mean, it really shows, like, you know, when the Chicanos and such and the Filipinos like got into like suits later on.
Yeah, I mean, hey,
Like,
do we want to talk about like the
we
jazz
can jump ahead
suit
for that
to
because
zoot
that. I mean,
suit
yeah,
pipeline?
let's do jazz
Well,
suit real quick.
I think
too.
you could like kind of lump. I mean, a lot of people will get mad if I said this. You can kind of lump Rah-Rah suits and jazz suits because I think jazz suits were a direct evolution of Rah-Rah suits.
Well, it goes in the opposite, where it instead of being
It's-
pear-shaped, it goes like extremely slim.
Yeah, you
And-
still see some of the weird details with like pockets, you know, construction and stuff. But yeah, a lot more slim, and I think probably a more flattering cut. But
I mean,
again,
so
still
this
pretty
is
out
probably what like Thomas Farthing, I think, like those kind of styles kind
Yeah.
of take after. So these were again narrow shoulders, not I mean, you know, like not lightly padded, but like super high buttoning point. The buttons were so high up the chest usually. You know, squared quarters. I mean, you'll see this in the images here. I mean, and there's also like jazz suit was kind of like, I'm sorry, Mark
catch-all
Chevalier
term.
for maybe we're using it wrong here, but we're using this to kind of talk about like kind of collegiate and youth suits, novelty suits of like the 20s. Like there's a DB suit here with like crazy bellowed upturned peak lapels that go like the gorgeous like on the shoulder.
I mean, a lot of these kind of
And then
remind me of like
yoked
frock
pockets.
coats, like just
yes,
in terms
exactly.
of like the length.
That is
yeah.
exactly it. They like you can see like these guys like the concept of like the Rah-Rah suit of like pulling in the pocket details combined with like frock coats of earlier, and then being worn with like a regular necktie. You know, it's kind of fun to see.
Yeah.
And then I'm also going to include some pictures of conservative suits of this because you can just also see like I mean like it's wild, but like they were a novelty. People still wore like 3-button sack suits at this time.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's fun, you know, to potentially imagine these old guys going, these guys and their fucking scalloped pockets and shit. Like, get the fuck out of here.
Yeah.
You also have briefly had the futurist suit, which probably is that most people
It's
in
like-
fashion design and history probably have heard of if
Yeah.
you're also into art and everything. There was like the futurist art movement of the 20s. That was a European thing. It's kind of one of my favorite art styles of painting, where you have it's kind of similar to like Bauhaus, where it's using shapes and asymmetrical shapes and different colors. But in terms of suiting, there briefly was an attempt to like redesign the suit in a way, and also like there was a lot of like jumpsuits and also that kind of era too. But it mainly referred to, at least from what I can tell and what Spencer and I found, was the fabric and coloring of the suits.
Yeah, it's like I'm looking at photos and it's like, yeah, they're like wearing these crazy vests with, I mean, I don't even know how to describe these patterns because they're just very abstract, but they're still just like a regular waistcoat. Or there's like a suit that's like made of all these like crazy patterns, and you know, the lapels are weird, like it's like a weird shaped lapel, but it's still, you know, the length of a jacket, and the pants are cut pretty traditionally. And I'm not, calling them out. I think it's just interesting. But yeah, again, this was like, I don't know, more like closer to like a runway piece, I guess, where not many people were actually wearing it outside of like
exactly
the artists. Yeah.
And then lastly, as an overall suit style, you had the jazz suit, which was again more of like a rebellious thing worn by Chicanos and Filipinos in LA.
The zoot
Sorry,
suit.
the zoot suit.
Yeah,
Yes, the zoot suit. And those, I mean, we say they're not as crazy as you think, but maybe if you're like a regular dude, these still are pretty crazy.
Well, I mean, so if most people, when they think of like zoot suits, they think of like The Mask, or like, you know, the movie like Malcolm X, or maybe like, you know, if you live around LA, I don't know, you've probably seen like zoot suit stores or whatever. And a lot of it is like very, you know, cheesy and costumey. And if you look at like the real examples of zoot suits, obviously they're still out there, but it's like clearly like, okay, this guy is just wearing like a long jacket and had like the ankles of his pants like taken in probably at a tailor. You know?
Yeah, I mean, so like this stuff again used as a form of like fashion resistance against convention, which is really cool to see. But like they were done in like kind of conservative suit fabrics, you know. Sometimes they were even like separates, like gray trousers and navy
Yeah.
jackets or whatever. They weren't like, again, people made fun of them later on in like for like shows, comedy shows, where like they were wearing that, but they were like crazy pinstripes, like in
Yeah,
white
like the ones
or
that you
black
see, like,
and
you know,
yellow.
Cab Calloway wear, like those are not, you know, like actual like zoot suits that people are wearing. And it's funny, like at LACMA, they had something
Infamous example
a
right
couple
here.
years ago where they were like the last true remaining zoot suit in existence. And it was, yeah, like a stage piece. It wasn't like something that like any, you know, like young person would have been wearing in
Yeah,
like
because
LA
most
or
of those
whatever.
ones that I've heard of, like they have like LA made by like Latino,
Uh-huh.
like tailors, like the label would be in there, right?
I agree.
Yeah, I'm sure you do.
Yeah.
So before we go into some other details, I just want to also briefly go over the European suits, the Latvian
Yeah.
suits and Lithuanian suits or whatever from the fucking 30s and or 20s and 30s and everything. So you do see this stuff kind of brought up in vintage circles. Like there is like some Flickr account out there that just there's a bunch of like people found a bunch of Lithuanian like family pictures, and when you see it, bro, it's fucking crazy. Like
I think, yeah, a lot of
It's-
these were like, again, probably made by local tailors or made at home, but it's like proportions that you don't see on anything else.
it's like they heard the concept of like what fashion trends were happening in America in the 30s, and they're like, let's just do that.
Yeah, I
And-
mean, that's the interesting thing about like European menswear. I mean, it's like, you know, frankly, for like a lot of the after World War One and like a lot of the 20th century, like America was a quote unquote more like modern place than a lot of, you know, like Europe. So when you look at this like European menswear, there's so much more like old world influence than you get in America.
Yeah, it's, you know, and you get to see a lot of like, you know, not just old world influence, but like you see some like 20s ideas too, like the crazy striped shirts worn with like high buttoning points, but then like crazy wide leg trousers, you know, pagoda shoulders. It's all kind of like just a combination of so much stuff just happening in these European suits. And in general, European suits are kind of got a little bit of more ideas than in like convention. Like I remember I had like a German, like no, maybe it's bad. Maybe it's not German. Maybe it's like British, a British 30s or 40s
Sure.
suit where like it was like a 4-on-2 DB, but the lapels were a little bit slimmer, but the shoulders were very padded. The trousers had an extended, like, you know, not like a collegiate waistband, but like
Oh,
an
that's
extended
right, yeah.
waistband, and then it had like belt loops, and then like suspenders that like could the buttons on the back could flip out as like a tab as a fishtail to mimic that. So that's kind of a fun thing. Because again, back then, like, you know, and maybe you wanted this to transcend the fad of belts. So like, oh, I gotta get ready for suspenders if I need them, you know. So and side tab adjusters too. It's fucking crazy, these European suits. So you see a lot of that stuff more common in like the 30s and maybe early 40s, and then after that kind of got more standardized. But again, really cool stuff. Again, just variations of lapel styles and like shoulder construction and everything is just really cool.
Yeah, a lot of like European and like a lot of like Central European, they stuck like countries. They like belted suits stuck around
Yeah,
a lot longer than the U.S.
and that topic about like the Lithuanian suits. I mean, it reminds me of Amitora, where one of the first Ivy guys in there tried to describe a sack suit
Oh, that's right, yeah.
to a tailor, and the guy made something, and I wish I could see what the hell it could make. Like, imagine tailoring a tailor that normally puts shoulder pads and has draped chest and says, I don't want any darts in the body, I want it to like to roll to the middle button, you know, maybe like a closer quarter and the soft shoulder. It's like, how the fuck do you do that, you know? But of course, you know, there are other details that we've kind of talked about in previous ones. I've also written about this before, but in general, in the 30s and 40s, you have a lot of like more smaller details that make the overall jacket much more interesting. You got stuff like belt backs, and belt backs were incredibly functional. You had a fucking crazy variation of belt backs. You had like the bi-swing, which has the pleats where like the shoulder meets the armpit kind of area, which lets you, you know, golf or shoot a gun kind of a thing there. You had
There's like shark fin.
which like expands like as like an accordion when you move your back, which is really crazy, really cool to see on a gabardine suit. Obviously, gabardine, still plugging it, baby. It's gotta come back. You had like the middle pleat ones or the
yeah, like
dual
just
pleats.
action backs in general, where anytime you move, like the
They
back
just
would
open
like
up.
exactly. It's again like just so cool. It's
Yeah.
I wish that there were more brands like just like if you're making even at like fucking Menswear House or J Crew or whatever, they make these like tweed sport coats that are meant to be worn casually. Why not throw a belt on there?
Yeah,
Would that
exactly.
be cooler?
I mean, you also have stuff like bellow pockets, which is a big thing, and all of this stuff. It sounds like, oh, these were only found on hunting stuff or whatever on tweed jackets. No, you found them in gabardine. You see them in cotton. Like these, like that. That's a great example, or the best example is probably a Clark Gable suit, and it happened
Oh
one
yeah.
night where he's wearing like a three-piece suit, which technically, is technically formal, but it's got like it's like a two-button jacket with triple bellow pockets, like and like an action back. So it's one of those things where like, I know we've talked to Kyoshi about this. I know he's listening, but like, oh, you can't do like patch pockets with a peak lapel, but people did that all the time back in the day. Again, to your credit, it might not be good, but the fact is people did it. You had, I mean, Jimmy Stewart had four patch pockets on a single breasted peak lapel jacket.
I love a peach lapel
You had
jacket.
four patch pocket double breasted jackets. Sometimes
Yeah.
they did it on 6-on-2. So you did have like a weird thing where like where the breast button met the patch pocket, which looks bad, but they still did it because it's just fuck it. They just had all this really cool stuff. You also had like, okay, you think that pleated backs are practical. Okay, what's the practicality to a pleated front? No reason, but it's just
It's
cool.
just there, yeah.
It's just there. You had it like, yeah, right where like the front darts end, and it's just like a fun detail that you just don't see anymore. And the thing is like the rest of the suit is pretty conservative. I mean, 3-button jacket, 2-button jacket, DBs, and they had the stuff, a nice straight leg trouser, probably in like a plain fabric or maybe like a flecked fabric or pinstripe or whatever. But other than that, it was a pretty normal thing. You
Yeah.
see this advertised in catalogs, sometimes you even saw it in Esquire Man. It's really just so fascinating to see how much fun these people did. With Esquire, it was like all about the styling of it, putting all these different, patterns of shirts and jackets, wearing it together. But then now you have like just straight up from the construction design standpoint of like just making it different. I mean, you also had like diamond weave, like that was like novelty weaves in general were such a big thing too. Like diamond weave, tweeds, like crazy diagonal weave suits as well.
Oh yeah, like I mean, yeah, I don't know if we can just like post photos of like Marc Chevalier, but he has like a crazy like 1920s like diagonal weave double breasted suit.
Yeah.
That man, like I think I saw that thing in person and it's like insane.
Yeah, it's really cool. Actually, this is not anything breaking, but I was walking out of my tailor and I saw him. I don't know if he just straight up avoided me, but I also was wearing workout clothes and my hair was messy. I'm wearing a mask. But I saw him there holding a Palm Beach jacket. He's on his cell phone, and I think he's just waiting for me to leave, like the tailor, because only one or two people in there at a time, so he's probably just waiting out. Because he's down the street, so I walked back to my car, and I saw him. He saw me leave, and he walked in, and I was like, should I have said anything? I don't know. But yeah, that guy is some crazy. I mean, that's what.
And
made
hey,
it so cool.
Speaking of Palm Beach, I think we can like. So this is a good way to kind of illustrate like the mythos that comes with vintage. So Palm Beach was this company that existed for like a very long time, like technically up until like the 70s or 80s probably.
As
right?
a company brand,
As a company brand. But they had this proprietary fabric that, when did they start making it? Did you see?
Yeah, I got this. So basically, we can link this in the description or in the show notes here. But so in 1912, this proprietary fabric had a cotton warp and a mohair weft.
But
and
yeah, it was this like proprietary like summer fabric that now is highly valued by collectors.
Yeah.
Mostly because the factory like burned down in the 50s and they
never made it back. Yeah.
Yeah, they like I think the original like recipe like the original composition, like the exact original composition I think has been lost. So that's another reason.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's like it's funny because it's like, well, you and I both have like Palm Beach stuff. And again, what's interesting is like we've kind of like discovered is Palm Beach as like as a singular entity like never really existed. Because
I mean, so let me read it off here. So yeah, it was the proprietary fabric that people collect that doesn't exist anymore. 1912, cotton warp and mohair weft. In 1941, it was reformulated to make the fabric softer and lighter. So Spencer has one that is kind of not heavier, but it's a lot rougher from the early 30s. But so the thing is, 1941, the precise content is unknown, but likely included the addition of rayon into the cotton warp and mohair weft. And by the late 40s, it was cotton, mohair, and rayon. The precise content percentages depended on the fabric's application, so like what you were making it for, and the region of the country in which it was sold. So a Palm Beach necktie. So they made this into neckties. They made it into like. You could see that in like some military uniforms made of Palm Beach fabric, but more commonly it's trousers, sport coats, and suits. It was 50% rayon, 32% mohair, 12% cotton, and 6% nylon. So this is a good example of like a novelty proprietary fabric, kind of similar maybe to like nowadays to like balloon from Ring Jacket, although that one is more of how you weave it because it's still made out of just regular wool. It's not really like a cool blend of anything. But yeah, see, it's just back then they just had so much fun with shit,
and,
you know.
And I mean the other the other thing about like Palm Beach is now a lot of examples don't exist. But if you look through catalogs, like most of the ones that you've seen, if you are a vintage collector, chances are you've seen like a Palm Beach suit. And most of the ones you've seen have just been like plain white. But again, if you look at catalogs, they make them like in patterns. They made black like Palm Beach suits and black linen suits. And it's once again this thing where because like most men had to wear suits during the summer, it was the thing of like, okay, well, we're just gonna make fun summer suits. Like if you want to wear like a plaid suit in the middle of the summer, like a brown plaid suit in the middle of the summer, you're not gonna get a tweed suit. You're not like the fucking Great Gatsby movie. You're gonna get like a brown plaid, like Palm Beach or some other like summer weave.
Exactly, and it's also on that same through line. If you want to have something that has fucking patch pockets because you want some easy access, like. You would just put that on your pinstripe suit. You would just put that on you want to move around? Well, I'll ask my tailor made to order, get me like a navy suit with a fucking belt back so I can move around, Mm-hmm. There was just so much stuff in there that kind of shows you that even though maybe they weren't as stylish as we think maybe we're idealizing a little bit, they had this sense of practicality and versatility. And since there was ready to wear, but most stuff was like made to measure, made to order, where they kind of just put the stuff that they wanted onto their clothing. They kind of made it work for them. And that idea is something that we try to, keep alive nowadays. It's kind of sad that this whole thing is kind of more of a niche. And these niches there's like niches within niches. I mean, it's not just about like the detail in the jacket, but like there are a lot of styles that are like that incorporate those details, like vintage like cycling attire, where you had like these short jackets weren't like the Ricky jackets that you normally see. They also weren't leather jackets, but they had like a specific look where like they had twin breast pockets, short length, crazy zippers on them. Where there isn't like, oh, it's not like American motorcycle leather jacket. It's also not like a workwear thing. It's its own thing. It's like vintage skiing wear, where like you had vintage ski suits. We put that in the Esquire article where a guy's like. There's a guy wearing a belted like three button navy suit, and they were saying how this is a ski suit, so like the trousers are meant to be like tucked into the ski boots. The jacket is cut shorter so you can move around better. It was a dedicated thing that looks kind of like a business suit that has just like patch pockets or whatever, but it's meant for skiing. It's crazy, and it's hopefully this essay just shows and the show notes just show you just how much of a variety there was in menswear, and how hopefully with the post-pandemic thing, this is a big ask, but hopefully we get to go into this stage at the very least be able to wear your clothes with this mindset of like, you know what, I am
Yeah.
going to use these patch pockets. You know what, I am going to get like a fun, commission a fun like Dobby stripe shirt, but then wear it with like a knit tie so it doesn't seem as crazy. You know, kind of bring this idea alive of just how fun and creative vintage tailoring was, and or make you get an appreciation of vintage, get a better, expand your mind of how it is, and maybe start collecting it. You know, it's just really cool.
Exactly. And I mean, I think the other thing is you can learn from this is even if you're into classic menswear, which, you know, I guess we're having an episode upcoming that gets into what exactly that means, you don't have to be so concerned with all this minutia and all these rules.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think, yeah, if you are into classic menswear, like just take classic pieces and wear them how you want. You know, that's all you got to do.
And if this doesn't show you a lot of stuff that we think is classic, I mean, what you probably want to say is you like conservative menswear. If that's what you want to do, say that. But when you like classic or vintage, there is so much in there that if you have an open mind, will let you get an appreciation. This is how looking at all of this stuff makes us go like, you know, oh, an engineered garments Bedford jacket. Oh, that looks like a 30s, you know, peak lapel chore jacket that has like the quadruple patch pocket that Jimmy Stewart has. It's like, whoa, that's crazy. Or the easy pants that are super high waisted, you know, that we have, you know, that's like really wide. Oh, those are like gaucho pants from like the 40s and 50s. You know, all of these shoes, like that's why we like Yucatan. That's why we like Pear Boot, because you see the examples here, you know, and people did do them. It's, you know, and seeing it here expanded in like regular catalogs, Sears catalogs, photographs. It just shows you that like nothing really is, as we said in the Esquire one, nothing really is new under the sun, and it should hopefully inspire you to kind of get into it, experiment a little bit, and kind of have an expanded thing of your style. If not, just take at least cues on how to combine the pieces that you already own. You know, because chances are you're probably not going to find this stuff, and a tailor is probably not going to do this stuff for you.
I mean, again, like with stuff like Rah-Rah suits, like we're not recommending people wear them. It's just one of the, it's, you know, it's fun to do this research because, as we said, like none of this stuff exists. None of this, there's no school that teaches this. There's no like YouTube channels that are like, you know, have a curriculum about the history of like men's clothing that goes this deep. It's just, you know, it's just a thing that we enjoy doing. We like clothes.
It's just
like,
cool.
It's fun to learn about the history of clothes.
Yeah, and you know, at the end of the day, for us, you know, as every podcast episode kind of goes to, man, I can't even talk right now. I'm dying here. But as we introspect more about this topic and everything, it's kind of clear that what we like about vintage isn't just period accuracy. It's just about fucking looking at cool clothes, man. And who doesn't like to do that?
Exactly.
Hopefully,
and as I've said before, I think knowing the history of your garment can help you pair it, because if you like say you get, you know, like a leather jacket, like a specific type of leather jacket, you can say, even if you're not planning on wearing it like you're a World War II aviator, you could look at it and say, okay, is this a workwear style or a military style? Like, what kind of person would have worn this back in the day? And I think that can help you either subvert it or play into those.
And subvert it. There are pictures of guys wearing it with a bunch of other stuff too. Like, that's the whole thing about this, right? Like, there's
just if you know where your garment came from, I think it makes it easier to, you know, figure out how to wear it.
Yeah, because no offense to, well, maybe plenty of offense, but regular menswear is not going to give you that. Like, it's fun to look at the old pictures and just see that back then they were just treating it as cool clothes they just like to wear, you know?
Yeah.
So take a look at the essay that I wrote. Probably not going to be a long one. Probably just going to be like, I love vintage, and here's some cool pictures, because I'm not going to go into the history of each one. But there's a lot of pictures that we've included here. Hopefully you guys have enjoyed looking at them, and hopefully it gives you like that kind of expanded mindset that we've always been talking about. But if you want to talk about it with us, I mean, also sometimes we find cool images, we just post them for people to see it. They see that in our Discord, the Sound Direction Discord. The best menswear community in the universe.
We keep talking about it. We keep talking about stuff that happens in the Discord on the podcast.
Yeah,
and,
so you're gonna have to join in, man.
That's why you got to get in there. I
guess. Patreon.com/StyleAndDirection, $5 a month gets you access to that Discord. You know, we host our streams in there. We play video games, whatever. We're all cool. We're all jimmied. Don't know what that means.
Neither do I.
Yeah, but anyway, if you give us $10, We really appreciate it. That's a little extra $5 for us and some food for you. But those $5 does give you the status as a Sadcast fanatic. So I thank you for those $10 donations from Austin Malott, Shane Curry, Philip Gagard, Audrey Jessica, Jeremy Outstriker, Jarrett Colian, and James Devanzo. We really appreciate you guys. Thank you for being our Sadcast $10
Thank you
tier patron,
very much.
whatever. If you guys don't want to do that, it's okay. Spencer, what can they do if they don't want to give us money?
You can rate us 5 stars on iTunes and leave us a review. That pleases the algorithm, and we need it to
Please, I'm the algorithm. Give me 5 stars.
grow. And don't you want to give the algorithm 5 stars?
It's the algorithm. Wait, no. Why am I making him
I don't
German?
know.
He's not German. He's Russian.
Sure.
Yeah, you know, Sator.
Oh, okay. I thought we were talking about algorithm, the
I'm
character
sorry.
that we just came up with.
Oh yeah, I'm algorithm. That's it.
Yeah.
Yeah, 5 stars. We'd really appreciate it. We also stream on Twitch Wednesdays and Sundays. Yep, it's Wednesdays and Sundays. That's right.
It is Wednesdays and Sundays.
Yeah, we've decided forever now. Don't hold us to it. But yeah, twitch.tv/Down Direction. Follow us on Instagram. That's Down Direction, all spelled out here. Go there if you want to see some clips of this. If you haven't already listened to the episode, but also the images of what we're talking about. You can follow me at Ethan M. Wong.
I'm Spencer DSO.
And go to a little bit of rest.com because that's my blog. It's a separate entity, but it's also not really. It's kind of a weird, fun. It's like
Who knows what it is? I'm trying to think of an example,
like a political example of like a company,
or like a business example too. I mean, who knows?
It's like a shell company, kind of, right? Where like you don't own it, but you do kind of, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, follow us there, and have some fun with us. Have some fun, guys.
Please have fun.
Please feed me. I'm the algorithm. I'm the algorithm. Or I'm algorithm.
Yeah, algorithm, the new character. We need some fan art of him.
Yeah, draw him. I swear this. Okay, if you guys submit it, any submissions, I'll post it on the sad account. I will as a static in feed post. Okay, so submit it. This is an open thing. I don't even know who's still listening to it, but if you got it, I'm gonna shout you out.
Algorithm can look like whatever you want.
Make it safe for work. We don't want it to be removed from Instagram.
Oh,
okay?
that's true. Yeah,
no,
if it's like something offensive or like something that Instagram will ban, I guess we won't post it. But
but with it, make it silly, not racist or nude or something.
Yeah, or both. The racist nude.
Racist nude.
Yeah.
Oh man. Okay. Well, we'll see you guys in the next one. Thanks, MJ, for producing the podcast. Bye bye.
Thank you. Bye bye.